Hello and welcome to the Arcade Era Power Hour, episode 11.
Wow.
Today, yeah, I know, right? Today, I am Gibbon and I am accompanied by...
Today, I am Milo. Tomorrow, maybe something else.
Yeah, who knows? But also, guest this week is...
Oh, man, this is the part where I introduce myself?
Well, we can introduce you. I first met this person as Banjo-Kazooie Tooie 2000 on the DK Vine forums. But he's also known as Gunty, Kyle, or simply Bob. So, hello, Bob.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
That is me. I am Bob.
It's good to have you here, Bob.
Yeah, it's great to be on the podcast. I've actually wanted to be on this since it was a thing when Gibbon first created the pilot. I was like, oh man, I would like to be on that. It's really cool.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
And now 4 years later.
Yeah, here I am.
Yeah. And today, Bob will be joining Milo and I as we talk about mods and hacks for the original Donkey Kong and its ports, as well as a couple others here and there.
Yeah, and we don't have any news or updates this week, so we can just launch straight into the topic. And I'd first like to ask Bob, you are the one who suggested this as a topic, so why did you bring that as your suggestion? And what do you have to say about it for yourself?
What have I got to
justify yourself?
let me justify this decision I have made.
Okay.
The reason why I brought this idea to the table for the podcast is because I didn't know if you guys had done anything like that, and I thought, well, this is about, like the arcade Donkey Kong stuff, and seeing as I was introduced to Remix through Gibbon quite some time ago, I thought, oh, what if there's an episode where we talked about DK Remix, and, if there was any other hacks that existed for... Originally, it was just arcade Donkey Kong, but it soon became the ports because a lot of people have made a lot of different, hacks and modifications for the different versions of the game that have come out.
They sure have.
Indeed. Yeah, I frequently refer back to the DK Gerda games list, which is an excellent little resource just to look at. And if you sort by series, Gibbons put up a little category for hacks and mods. With some of the more famous or popular ones in there, but we're going to be going well beyond that today in this episode. Bob provided some useful links to lots of different lists of hacks, and I found some more myself after that. And yeah, we're going to be covering as many as we can get away with, or at least as many as we were able to find. There's a lot out there, so we
did find. Curate this a little bit. So.
Yeah, that's true. To be specific, I left out ones that I noticed were explicit, like obscene, contained content of a sexual nature, etc., as well as ones that are just unavailable now because some are talked about on the internet, but then when you try and find them,
that's always a shame when that sort of thing happens. Let's start with the official ones, why don't we?
Yeah, good idea. I actually forgot that these existed until late into the research process, but there are some hacks of Donkey Kong that are, official products from Nintendo.
Yeah, amazingly enough. So the big one probably is DK Original Edition, which was originally an anniversary thing they put out on Virtual Console.
So it's a hack of the NES port of Donkey Kong that adds in the missing cement factory or pie factory level, as well as some of the jingles and interstitial bits and graphics that were missing.
Had some minor graphical tweaks, some additional sound bits and bobs, and the pie level. So
yeah, but as you were saying, its availability has been really spotty over the years. So its original, I want to say release, but it wasn't really a release. It was preloaded onto a special anniversary edition of the Wii that was sold in Europe in 2010. So it was sort of using the Virtual Console framework that the Wii had, but it was never sold on that service at that time. You had to buy this special red Wii with it pre-installed. I think that's the source, because you can find it now on ROM sites.
Yeah,
but I think that's from people just dumping it from that Wii.
probably, and it's an actual NES ROM file. So,
Yes.
and then later it was on 3DS Virtual Console, but only if you use like the purchase bonus for like a couple specific titles.
Yeah, you'd have to buy a retail release, a full price first party Nintendo game, and then they would give you a bonus of Donkey Kong Original Edition on the 3DS. And that was happening in 2012.
The only one of the options I didn't own at that point was Sticker Star, and I wasn't willing to buy Sticker Star just for a DK Original Edition, even though I now own Sticker Star years later and actually enjoy it decently. At the time, I was not willing to give it another shot so soon. So,
it did finally get a commercial release. From Wikipedia, it says that it was only on the PAL 3DS eShop for Virtual Console in 2014.
I believe it.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was ever released in Japan and North America. But at some point, you could actually buy it.
Yeah, I'm looking at a Nintendo Life article that says Nintendo released Donkey Kong Original Edition on Wii in Europe and later 3DS in North America, and then it says now it is simply available to purchase in the 3DS eShop. And this article was written in 2014.
Okay. I do know that Nintendo Life is based in the UK, so they might be talking about the UK eShop when they say that.
Yeah.
So I'm still a little unclear on its status, but
yeah,
like I said, it's on ROM sites. Just go download it, go emulate it. It's fine.
Yeah,
looks like it's 4.5 pounds. 4.5 pounds on the European eShop,
and in fact it's been superseded now because part of the motivation for doing it was the legal situation with the original arcade version of Donkey Kong, lawsuits with Ikegami Tsushinki, who coded the game and that kind of thing. Theorized to have held it up from having an official release, even on the Wii, which did have an arcade Virtual Console. But as of now, it seems to have been sorted out because the arcade edition has been released on the Switch's eShop.
Yeah, that was kind of a big deal.
Series, yeah, we've talked about it on the podcast before. But when you have the arcade version, you don't really need a port to the NES, even if they've added the missing content. There is one thing on the NES that's not on the arcade version, and that's the theme song during the title screen.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, bum, 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 bum. Da, da, da. Yeah, the one that Cranky's.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was new for the NES version.
Was it?
Oh, so I guess that's why I get later into Donkey Kong Country, because Cranky's
neat.
Get out on the little gramophone there at the start.
Cranky is a mass of contradictions because he's playing the gramophone that has the NES music, but he also, in his little quotes that he gives out, he talks about how back in his day they had like 4 shades of gray. Another thing that indicates that he's talking about DK94
for the Game Boy.
But that might also have the NES Diddy in it, so Diddy with a T. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That seems like either a translation oversight or just an oversight in general. Diddy with a T.
No, Diddy as a no, never mind. So next,
yes, so that's an official hack. Some of the hacks for the NES version rely on the original edition ROM, so we'll mention that as they come up. But in terms of other official hacks, I thought of NES Remix, the Wii U game that takes Nintendo's first-party 8-bit titles from the NES and gives you mini challenges based on them. There's a bunch of stuff based in Donkey Kong and that, but I don't really know if you would call it a hack or not.
There have been some hacks based on the stuff in NES Remix, though.
Hmm.
So,
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if on some level they're running a ROM, but considering all the other graphical flourishes they've added, they seem like recreations or something. But there's some pretty interesting stuff that NES Remix does to give you different kinds of challenges, like the one where you play as Link.
Yeah.
In 25 meters. And he can't jump, but he can use a sword, I think. Yeah.
I'm assuming that's akin to constantly having the hammer in place.
But you do have to activate it.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from the hip. I haven't actually played NES Remix.
I have it somewhere around here.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to chop up a game into smaller bite-sized challenges that mix up the rules of what you expect from it.
Yeah.
In one of them, it's really dark and there's a spotlight on you. And in another one, they put in extra hazards like falling springboards.
It's the sort of thing you'd see in WarioWare, but not in like 5-second chunks.
Yeah, a bit longer than that.
Yeah.
WarioWare is another one it's very similar to that, taking the original graphics and gameplay of a Nintendo game, at least for 9-volt and 18-volt stages, and giving you little challenges based on it. But I wouldn't call that a hack either.
Yeah. And those are more sort of recreations that just copy the graphics.
Yeah.
Probably the most famous Donkey Kong hack out there would be Donkey Kong Jr.
Yes.
I'm only half joking about this. That's the reason Donkey Kong Jr. for arcade never got re-released either, is because Nintendo got in a bit of legal trouble over it, because it was just a modification of the base Donkey Kong code, which again they didn't own. So, which is in turn one of the reasons Donkey Kong 3 is a completely new thing. So, yeah. We'll talk about that a bit more later when we get into like the one notable Donkey Kong Jr. hack. So, yeah.
But yeah, it is quite funny that technically Donkey Kong Jr. is itself a hack of Donkey Kong that Nintendo did based on Ikegami Tsushiki's code.
I mean, that's not uncommon, like taking a game you've already made and molding it into something else. So like Majora's Mask is a good example of what you can do with those sort of situations. So,
and kind of going
a
little bit of a kind of going down a little bit of rabbit hole with Donkey Kong Jr. being technically a hack of the original Donkey Kong. Can you say Donkey Kong Jr. Math is also a hack of Donkey Kong Jr., which is also a hack of Donkey Kong?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know how much the code is based on the same thing. But
or is it just in name only?
Yeah, I get your point. Yeah, it's a derivative work based on Donkey Kong Jr. Yeah.
Yeah, and also in looking at our list, I'm surprised we didn't really mention this, because this is not exactly really a hack of any kind, but the Donkey Kong, the arcade version of Donkey Kong that you play in Donkey Kong 64, that I don't know if that would count, because it's essentially the same, like a slightly reworked version of.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's another case where that's a recreation that they built from the ground up to mimic.
They did.
Yeah.
But there's also that
it was built from the ground up, and up to the time the original arcade game was re-released on the Switch, it was the most accurate recreation of the game. Also, according to the cutting room floor, there are a bunch of leftover artifacts from Donkey Kong Jr. in Donkey Kong Jr. Math. So
there you go.
Yes.
So it does count.
Worth a mention.
Yeah. With that out of the way, I think the main thing we're talking about today is the hacks that were made by fans, by the community. And there's plenty of them to go through. I've broken them up in the notes into 3 different categories. So one would be hacks that try to change minor things or how the game works. So they make improvements or fixes or otherwise some kind of modification to Donkey Kong and how it plays. The other one would be graphics hacks that swap out the sprites for other things, either to retheme it or to upgrade the graphics or something like that. And The third category would be new content hacks, ones that add new stuff to the game, new levels or that kind of stuff.
Fancy.
Yeah, those are
Probably
the
the
most
most
exciting
interesting
in my
ones.
opinion.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So let's start small and work our way up then, starting with the
Yeah.
improvements ones.
Why don't you take it away, Bob?
Sure thing. The first one that is on the list here, specifically for Donkey Kong Arcade, is Donkey Kong Trainer by John Kowalski, also known as Sockmaster. And and on the Donkey Kong forum, he made a post about it, basically a breakdown of what this is. He says that this is essentially going to be a Donkey Kong ROM set that plays just like normal Donkey Kong, but will add extra information to the game's display and will also include some features and functions to help with practice and training. So
Yeah.
if you wanna get good at arcade Donkey Kong, it's essentially a tool set to allow you to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Donkey Kong forum is really based around, they're a really hardcore community that are all about playing Donkey Kong and the mechanics of playing it and going for higher scores and going for records and stuff like that. And they really break down the game and drill down into it to get all the nitty gritty details of how it works and take it apart. And Sockmaster's hack is a way of facilitating that by giving you a lot more information about what's happening in the game, like an internal difficulty meter or whatever, and like timers for when the next thing is going to spawn and how long you've been on the board, how many points you've gotten and through what methods and how you can improve it. I think a later addition to the trainer hack added a pace function, which predicts your final score as of the kill screen based on your current performance and your performance up to that point. And using this hack, you can also speed up and slow down the gameplay, reset a board if you make a mistake. It's really, like Bob said, about getting good and helping you to do that in any way. And
a very useful resource.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see his name again later because he eventually made a more substantial hack to the game that gave you a new experience with it. But there's a couple of other improvement hacks that I thought were worth mentioning briefly. That's probably the main one for arcade, which is what the Donkey Kong forum focuses on. But the ports for Donkey Kong as well were very successful and popular in their day, and they have fans that continue to the present day, including, let me see, so Morgan Johansson made a patch for the NES version, which allows you to save your high scores, because that was not a feature. It had a high score table in the NES version, but whenever you turned off the console, it would lose those. They didn't have that backup on the cartridge or anything like that.
Yeah, which makes me think, because I think there was a thing in Nintendo Power that they would post high scores from games with every issue, and if you got a score higher than that, then you send it to them you would send the score to them in the next issue, but you had to have proper evidence that you got that score. So you'd have to take a flash picture of your screen.
That's right.
Which never looked right. And I've seen like pictures who attempted to do it. It's just big white blobs of screen.
Yeah.
Wouldn't turn.
You used to need a specialized camera to take proper screenshots of games. It's a sight to behold, because it's like a camera with this weird funnel set up to get just the screen with no flash or anything on it.
Oh, cool.
Like a lot of old cameras, essentially. Because like 1800s cameras where they have the really
Let's see.
I've got a lot of hacks for the Atari 2600 port as well. That's probably the next most popular port.
Yeah, definitely.
And that particular console has a huge following that continues making homebrew games and hacking existing games all the time. And you can watch a lot of that happening on the Atari Age forums. So the ones that I found that would fit in this category, I don't know if you'd really call them improvements. Some of these are dubious improvements, but they do change the gameplay in some way. Donkey Kong Invisible by Pixelated Ghosts makes all the hazards and enemies invisible.
Yeah, I don't think that's an improvement at all.
That's very much a detriment. you're trying to do. Considering, at least from my experience, I've played the 2600 version of Donkey Kong at a friend's house. He had a Coleco
Yeah.
with the 2600 like expansion port on it. And
Oh wow.
we were trying to play it with the actual like Atari controllers and a couple ColecoVision controllers. Everything is just, I guess I could say, out of whack with it because everything is very off on the jumping. Your jumping seems like it's really super laggy. Like you'll move forward and you'll jump, but you lose all of your momentum while jumping, so you don't keep.
Oof.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
and the fact that someone out there decided, let me make everything invisible. That's it almost I barely made it past the first screen trying to play
And then on
the version.
Like you're
on
saying,
the opposite end of the spectrum from that.
yeah, the opposite hack is boring Donkey Kong, which just removes all the hazards.
Yep.
I couldn't find
Or
an author for that, but you can find it on other third-party websites. But yeah, like you're saying, Bob, there were a lot of there are about more than a dozen ports of Donkey Kong to various different home computers and other low-power consoles at the time, and none of them were anywhere near what you would call arcade perfect. They all had weird-looking graphics, wonky physics, and dodgy hit detection.
And Donkey Kong just looks so wonderfully bootlegged in every one of them, despite the fact they're like kind of foolish.
Yeah, it's definitely worth going to Mario Wiki's galleries for Donkey Kong, Pauline, and Mario, checking out the sprite section, and it has a compilation of all the sprites from different arcade ports, from home computer ports. Really weird and interesting stuff. But you were talking about the jumping being laggy. You might want to try this other 2600 hack that I found. Low Gravity Donkey Kong by Atarius Maximus. This alters Mario's physics so that he runs faster and jumps higher.
That sounds incredibly useful given the fact that you really make it over the boulders in the game from what I have played.
Yeah, I should note as well that on top of the ports, all the ports suffering in terms of their aesthetics, they also often cut out some of the content of the game. We mentioned before about the NES version; it only had 3 levels in the original release, down from 4. The 2600 version only has 2 levels. It has 25 meters and 100 meters, or girders and ribbons, as they call them in the arcade community.
Yep. Still fun games in their own way, but yeah,
and decent approximations of what Donkey Kong is. So that's the improvements and fixes and mods hacks that I could find. There's a lot more in the section of graphics hacks because I think it's a bit easier to swap out the sprite graphics.
Yeah, graphics hacking is sort of the bread and butter of ROM hacking, just because it's probably the easiest to do. There's just tons of graphics viewers out there that allow you to look at a dumped ROM and see visual representations of the assembly, and the stuff that shows up as like parts of a coherent image is the graphics parts, and you can just mess with those and get different graphics on the screen. So they're the easiest to futz around with. So,
and you've even experimented with that yourself.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of that. I haven't like released any completed thing. It's mostly tinkering around with stuff in my own time for my own amusement. But I should finish one of these projects one of these days.
So I think when you talk about graphics hacks for Donkey Kong, the most popular one, maybe the most popular Donkey Kong hack in general, it got a lot of press when it was released, would be Pauline Edition.
Yeah, that generated a lot of press and got its own ports as well. So the story goes that a father, in response to his daughter wondering why you couldn't play as the girl, went and modded the original arcade Donkey Kong so that you could play as Pauline and rescue Mario, and instead of collecting like hats and bags and whatnot, you were collecting like tools and things that Mario might have dropped along the way. So Yeah.
It
Yeah,
seems,
it's an excellent.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say just the idea of, you know, this father go, you know, 3 year old daughters being like, well, why can't I play as Pauline, the girl? And then his response is not saying, well, because she, you know, because they had, you know, made you be able to do that. He just went and created this whole
Yeah, yeah.
graphics hack, which in reading the site looks like it took a ton of work, especially because, well, he originally did it for the NES, but then I think someone created a version that runs on a machine, on like an actual arcade machine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the guy's name is Micah. He made the NES hack originally in 2013 based on the original edition ROM that we were talking about. So you can play as Pauline through all 4 of the levels on the NES version through that. But based on that, when that blew up, other people were inspired to do similar things. So Clay Cowgill made a version of a Pauline hack for the arcade edition too. And I found out later that there's also even a hack for the 2600 version made by Salem Frost 7800.
Yep.
And that was so popular on the Atari Age forums that, and this is fairly common practice for the popular hacks, he started selling repro cards of it. He commissioned a cover art for it, a unique label to go onto the cartridge, and made repro cards up and sold them through the forum.
Yep. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a very simple idea, but a really good one.
Yeah.
I've seen similar hacks for the first Legend of Zelda to let you play as Zelda,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been others for plenty of games since then. There's one person who has made a hack for every single 8-bit Mega Man game to put Roll as the main character.
Ooh,
Wow.
very nice.
Yeah. Zinc Oxide is his name. Is their name.
In a similar vein, but less newsworthy, I guess. There's tons of other just hacks for the NES Donkey Kong that swap in various other characters, ranging from Hubert Kong by Armando, Kana Kong by Dastard, which is replaces the sprites with some Toho themed stuff, if you're familiar with that series. A Luigi edition by Clip It, which is based on the NES remix levels that changed the girders green and put Luigi in the starring role, rescuing Mario.
Yeah, you pointed out that they don't reverse the level, unfortunately, like the NES Remix does, but otherwise it's a fun change. Someone called Zemigi also did a version of that for the Famicom Disk System version of Donkey Kong. So there's 2 separate ones if you go looking for it.
An Ice Cream by El Kadong, which is just sort of ice cream themed graphics.
Yeah, it changes Donkey Kong into a giant ice cream cone.
Yeah.
Nice.
Versions featuring Bowsette and or Boozette by Kazufox.
Huh.
Yeah, if you see their profile on romhacking.net, they've done similar hacks for tons of old Nintendo games, putting Bowsette in. Back when the Bowsette craze was in full swing.
Wasn't that a weird month?
It was the cool thing to do.
Yeah, it usually swaps her in as the antagonist, I think.
And then Pac Quest, a Pac-Man themed version of the game.
Yeah, that's the one I most wanted to find, but I couldn't actually get a source for it. It's just one that people talk about.
Yeah.
But most of those you can find on romhacking.net.
And that's just for the NES version of the game, the 2600.
Yeah, like I was saying,
also has a bunch.
Yeah, the explosion of hacks on Atari Age. There's plenty of them to find if you look through the archives of the forums. Stuff like Donkey Claws by Philip R. Frey, a similar Donkey Kong Christmas by Neo Tokyo 2001, Homestar Runner DK by Lesser Raven. Out of Gas has done a few of them. One's called Save Sally that swaps in the characters for sort of more 1920s adventure serial type characters. I think they're original.
Interesting.
One was called Zartog.
Yeah, considering that Pauline is based on
Yeah, exactly.
that, what goes around comes around.
Yeah, yeah.
And similarly, Out of Gas collaborated with Neo Tokyo to reskin it with a Popeye theme in a hack called Save Olive.
Ah,
Nice.
that is also another
Going,
situation of what
going
goes around
real
comes
full
around.
circle. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. That fits the best, I think. They also did one called Zartog, where they swap out all the enemies for aliens and robots and stuff. Similarly, Jamcat Reloaded did one called Xenokong with some aliens in it. Not xenomorph aliens,
Ooh.
but
Yeah.
and that same person also did Bentley Bear's Honey Heist and Robotnik Kong.
Oh,
Bentley Bear's
Bear.
Honey Heist is a little interesting because that stars the main character of Crystal
Oh,
Castles,
castles. Yeah.
Yes.
which we will probably talk about on another episode at some point.
Yeah, that's a game that is covered by dkgoda.com.
Yep. I don't know about this Robotnik Kong guy though.
I can imagine it.
Probably a character made up by the comic books.
I was thinking it sounds to me that it would just be like Robotnik from the Sonic cartoon, but in like a
Mm,
I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in the cartoons, the Archie comics, the Fleetway comics, there was a Robotnik gorilla.
I wouldn't be at all surprised either.
Well, in looking at, I found on Atari AJ forum talking about Robotnik Kong, and it's just he almost looks like a walrus kind of, but it is most definitely Robotnik. It's the mustache and the pants and the
Nice.
it just looks like a
they
big
say
old
that
walrus.
they say that his character design is based on a walrus. He's got sort of triangles coming down below his face
Yeah.
that sort of look like tusks, and of course walruses have the big
Yeah,
mustache.
because he is the Eggman and he is the walrus.
Goo 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 joob. Which is as kind of a side tangent thing. Jim Carrey actually did a cover of "I Am the Walrus" in the
Ooh.
2000s, and I wish so bad that someone for the Sonic movie got him to do a cover of that for the movie, because it would be the perfect circle type of thing.
The circle of life.
You could do an AMV, use clips from the movie.
Ah,
synced up
yes.
to
That
his
would
song.
be. You know what? Once the Sonic movie comes out on home video, and maybe if it gets discounted enough that I'll buying it, that I could justify buying it, I will probably do that.
So, a few other graphics hacks of note. My personal favorite is Donkey Kong Redux by JY Co, and it's just a rather wonderful graphics overhaul that just kind of improves the graphics overall, in my opinion, gives them a little bit more definition and detail. So
not just the character sprites, but the environment graphics too. The girls
and the animations,
have deeper shading on them. Yeah, it's a complete overhaul of the whole game, and that's for the NES version, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So only the 3 levels, although I imagine this could easily be applied to the Pi Factory as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. You could probably stack a lot of these hacks on top of each other. So I wouldn't be surprised. Some of the graphics might be broken if you do that, but you could probably combine some of these with the original edition, even if they weren't designed for that. And on the other hand, combined Donkey Kong Redux with some of the other new content hacks that we're going to talk about later.
Ooh, yeah.
But just a couple of other notes before we get there. While, again, trawling the Atari Age forums, a lot of the hacks that I found, or at least there was a subset of them, where they were trying to... it was this trend where they were trying to bring them more in line with the arcade version. So they were changing the colors of the sprites to make them match up better with the original. You know, that's a common thing. It's the same thing with original edition. It's taking this port, which was limited at the time and was cut back for technical reasons, and using your know-how and your skills, and maybe some after some anachronistic technology upgrade, I'd say, to upgrade it and make it more like what it was mimicking at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the only other one I found was one called Donkey Kong Vector by Neo Tokyo 2001, which swapped out all the graphics for it made it look like it was on a vector-based system, so it's all outlines instead of solid colors. There was a monochrome version and a color version. Yeah, like a neon sign. Yeah, and it works pretty well, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice stuff. Moving into the most exciting category of hacks
New
would be the ones that
content.
have added new and exciting content to the games. So starting off,
yeah,
go ahead.
starting off would be another one for the Atari 2600 port that I found, and it's sort of more in line with the original edition hack. It's called Donkey Kong 2 Lost Levels by CDS Games, and this is an attempt to make the two missing levels that weren't in the Atari version, Pie Factory and Elevators, and to basically from scratch create them in the 2600 game.
An admirable goal.
Yeah. So another user called Batari had tried a similar thing previously, but CDS Games followed through on it more and did a completed version. Nuki is another user that then hacked that together with the original version, so there's a version you can play with all 4 levels.
Good stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a bit buggy. It doesn't work super well. You can walk off the screen, and then some of the elevators don't work right, so you kind of just get stuck in midair.
Yeah.
But it's
I don't
more or
know.
less
That sounds
playable.
about right for the 2600 version.
Yeah. It's a little
Working
authenticity.
as intended. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, let's get to the main thing then, the actual new content.
Yeah. So I actually want to talk about D2K first because it sort of originated this.
Yeah.
So D2K Jumpman Returns, or I guess abbreviated D2K, Donkey Kong 2 Jumpman Returns by Jeff Kozicki, started off as a hack called Donkey Kong Foundry, which was just the arcade Donkey Kong with one new level, but also like a free play mode option, and some other bits and bobs here and there. But was expanded into a full thing called Donkey Kong 2 Jumpman Returns, with a full advertising campaign, a new cab art, and you could actually buy arcade PCB boards with this. That's something we should note. All of these are hacks of the arcade game you could buy at one point or another. Just due to the murky legality, Nintendo wasn't really able to stop these from being on the market. And yeah, so this had 4 new levels in total. So you had 8 levels in the total game. It didn't just replace the levels, it had them in addition to the original 4. But it also now had attract mode animation videos instead of just the how high can you get apes. And that was actually part of the advertising campaign, because they ran a little like faux newspaper article about how Goofy Kong is missing. Goofy Kong being the sort of community name for the apes on the how high can you get screen. So it was a little like, rip Goofy Kong, where is he? Because there were now attract mode animations, at least one of which was inspired by Congo Bongo, where you have Mario coming and lighting a little fire under Donkey Kong's feet.
Yes, that's a good one.
So,
I like the one where Pauline is walking across the screen with her hat, her bag, and her parasol, which makes her sprite very cluttered. But then Kong spooks her and she runs off the side, dropping them as she goes.
Yeah. So this got a lot of notoriety in the community at the time, and sparked some ports, including D2K Arcade, a quote-unquote port to the Intellivision, which had 2 unique levels
That's a really
but
complicated
also
situation.
sold commercially for a time. And there was a later special edition which had just the new levels from D2K, the arcade version, and as well as some extra characters, Tony and Bruno, who are different
Yeah.
colors than Mario, and all three playable characters have some unique special abilities that make them a little different to play as.
Yeah, they're said to be Mario's brothers, and
The other ones.
some of them can run faster or jump higher. Bruno has the ability to go up a ladder while using a hammer.
Ooh.
But yeah, my favorite thing about this port is the two all new levels that Carl Mueller Jr. Created for the original pseudo port.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to call it because I don't even know if he made it with Jeff's permission, but
I seem to remember getting there from a post by Jeff, so
Okay.
I think he was at least aware of it.
Sure. Again, there's a murky legality thing about that because the only way to get that is buying either the physical edition or buying a ROM from Carl Mueller Jr.
Yeah.
And the ways to do that, there's a lot of websites that are linked in the Atari Age forums, but all the websites that sold it are now gone and dead.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if you can buy this thing anymore, but there's YouTube videos that are around.
Maybe eBay or Etsy.
Well, I found a link where you can play a Flash version of the game online. If you're into that.
Interesting. But then, sort of inspired by D2K, some years later, we got. Or are we
do you
not
want
done
to talk?
with...
Do you want to talk in more detail about D2K because it's the most substantial Donkey Kong hacking project, really?
Okay, that's fair. Well, I don't know if I'd call it the most substantial anymore, but it certainly was at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a really big deal. Like it was a new Donkey Kong game for sale on the market just due to various factors. So just to go into it a little bit, the new levels are Mixer, which has conveyors and falling pies, for lack of a better term, and the Mixer, and Foundry, which was the original new level, where you have to jump over flame pits and ride moving steel beams.
Yeah, that feels more like a DK Junior level to me because of those conveyors.
The Refinery, which has oil, gas, and safety valves, and again, this is a little DK Junior-ish because it's got like power lines with sparks moving along them and stuff. And then the Incinerator, where multiple conveyors sort of funnel stuff to a burning pit in the middle of the level, and you have to sort of navigate around that.
Yeah, that's my favorite one because it has this additional objective to it. On top of the items that already appear from Pauline, there's love hearts that you have to pick up a certain number of them that are scattered around the screen, and then new ones appear. And they weigh down a pulley system that then you have to use to get to the final platform. So that's really emblematic of these 4 new levels that Jeff made for D2K. They're a lot more complex than the original game's levels. There's more moving parts, there's more stage geometry, there's more going on. And I find that really compelling as a way of expanding upon what Donkey Kong was doing.
Yeah.
But going by how the Donkey Kong forum has received it, maybe its reception is a little bit more mixed. I saw some criticism of it on the grounds that it's harder to rack up a high score. There's this thing called point pressing. And it's harder to do that in this. I didn't really understand what point pressing was, but it was said that the new levels don't facilitate that as much as the original.
Yeah, that's the thing. The new levels are very interesting from a casual gameplay perspective, not from a competitive perspective. In that, in that way, later hacks are much more well received by the community because they're basically. I guess this is a good time to jump into Donkey Kong Remix because that's basically what it is. The levels don't introduce any new mechanics. They just remix concepts from the levels. So while Donkey Kong Remix has a lot more new levels, none of them are quite as interesting as the D2K levels.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Um, so
Donkey Kong Remix, that was made by John Kowalski, who we saw before, made the Donkey Kong Trainer hack.
yeah.
Yeah, this had an interesting start. It started with him making a homebrew emulation, or like a homebrew version of Donkey Kong on an emulation of the Tandy Color Computer 3. And then building on that to make remix levels for that version until finally, after a few years, they managed to make an arcade PCB expansion, or rather, they made a version of Donkey Kong Remix for the arcade version, and then finally sold that as a PCB expansion. So just like D2K, that's now commercially available for your very own Donkey Kong cabinet that, of course, you all own and keep in your garage.
Oh yeah, totally. I totally have a garage. Yep. And yeah, so it's got 6 new levels and a handful of new bonus levels in addition to the original content of the game. And then there's also some other versions of DK Remix. There's Spooky Remix and Christmas Remix, which just add some Halloween or winter holiday flavor to the graphics. And then there is...
so it's got additional graphics hacks on top of the remix hack that they created for it.
Yeah, I've actually... go ahead.
There's also the deranged version, which slowly increases the difficulty. I think the original Donkey Kong has a difficulty cap, but they made new ways for the difficulty to get harder and harder as you continue speeding up things even more than they ever would. Spawning more enemies, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say I've actually spoken a few times with Sockmaster on Twitter just about the process, since I do like my assembly hacking. And he's been very eager to just talk about it casually. So it was very approachable, nice getting insight in sort of how he was going about things and inserting the new graphics and having to recompile everything and whatnot. So it's definitely a process.
And as an added note...
as an added note...
Sorry,
Jeff...
can I...
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Milo.
Go ahead.
Wait, what are you talking about, Bob?
I was going to say, I was checking the Facebook page, and they installed both DK Remix and DK Junior Remix into an arcade that is actually 40 minutes away from me. So, at some point in the near future, I might actually be able to play this on a physical original Donkey Kong cabinet. I'll have to.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if there were cabs of this somewhere up near me. So, but
it's cool. Just like the Skyscraper Restoration Project, where they managed to get a working PCB out of it, and then they took that on tour and they installed it into arcades, and they had events with it. I think they do similar things with the Donkey Kong Remix and possibly D2K as well. You can see pictures on their Facebook page of them, with physical machines at arcade locations, showing it off. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would say that my favorite thing about Remix is the bonus levels.
Yeah.
Where between stages, there's a little point scoring scramble thing. Much like a lot of other games had at the time, but not something that any Donkey Kong game really had. Oh, I guess 3 had it, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Or was that just 3 The Revenge? I don't remember.
It was certainly a thing that showed up a lot in a lot of similar games. It is kind of surprising in retrospect that none of the early Donkey Kong arcade games had it, since it was just such a prevalent thing. Or it's also sort of surprising that the NES ports didn't add that.
So in that sense, Remix is really filling a gap that exists in terms of the way that arcade games worked in that era.
It'd be kind of neat if we could get 1 megaverse levels and bonus levels and the D2K stuff in it.
Yeah.
And just everything.
I guess you'd have to have
Also,
access to all of the assets in order to create such a like collusion of
well,
modded good.
I mean, that's one thing about D2K and Donkey Kong Remix is they don't add any new assets to the game. They use just the original assets from the original title and make all this new stuff out of it. So,
yeah, it's really clever in that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one could make a D2K remix sort of thing.
One could maybe, yeah.
Having said that, I think D2K does have a few new sprites.
Does it?
The Love Heart and maybe the mix.
No, the heart is a sprite that Pauline makes a heart when you go up to rescue
You're
her.
right.
Yeah.
And they use some graphics not seen in the original, but they're in the original's board. They're just unused.
Oh, that's really cool.
So,
That's nice.
which is something a proposed Donkey Kong 3 remix. People have been talking about adding Junior to it because there are actually sprites for Junior on the board that were unused in the final game. So that's kind of something that people are like, ooh, Junior could be added to a DK3 remix.
Yeah.
But Sockmaster has said, like, for my sanity, it's going to be a while before I even approach that. So, because after doing Donkey Kong Remix, he went and did Donkey Kong Junior Remix, which required a lot more legwork than Donkey Kong Remix did.
I can imagine.
So getting into Donkey Kong Junior a little bit, just the original, as we mentioned briefly back at the beginning of the episode, Donkey Kong Junior is a bit of a hack of the original Donkey Kong. I didn't realize how much of a hack this was until I was speaking with Sockmaster and following his updates on the progress of Junior Remix. So one of the things that allowed things like Jumpman Returns and Donkey Kong Remix to happen is that stuff, the enemies in Donkey Kong are all dynamic. So barrels and little fire guys and whatnot all react dynamically to their environment, and they will intelligently, based on their rudimentary AI patterns, like go down ladders and slopes and whatnot like they're supposed to, regardless of the level layout. This is not the case for the enemies in Donkey Kong Jr. The Snapjaws move on very specific paths, whether the geometry aligns to them or not. So the early attempts of creating new level geometry, the Snapjaws were still moving in a pattern as if the old geometry was there. So one thing they had to do for Donkey Kong Jr. Remix, for example, was create enemy AI so that Snapjaws would move intelligently.
Good grief, they had to make all new AI because the original didn't have it.
Yeah, technically the enemies in Donkey Kong Jr. Remix are new enemies that are using the sprites of the old enemies.
Oh, wow. That's so impressive.
Like, it's super impressive.
That's all the more impressive that Donkey Kong Jr. Remix got made, because it makes Donkey Kong seem much easier to hack in comparison. You can make new levels and then have the enemies just do what you expect them to do.
Yeah.
But it's not the case in Junior.
They had to start by actually making the enemies react to the environment with AI rather than go on set movement paths and then start remixing levels for Donkey Kong Jr. Remix.
And I think Junior Remix also is more substantial than Donkey Kong Remix. It's got 7 new levels and 4 bonus levels.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
I think they just kind of got into it.
I mean, if you're going to rework the AI, like if you're literally going to give the major, I guess most of the major enemies of Donkey Kong Jr. AI, you might as well make good use of that by building around that idea.
Yeah, you might as well. Yeah, that's right.
So very
impressive.
Pretty much the only notable Donkey Kong Jr. hack. Like there are some graphical hacks for the ports of the games that try to bring it more in line with the arcade version, because Donkey Kong Jr. had sort of even more notoriously bad looking ports than Donkey Kong did. But yeah, Donkey Kong Jr. Remix is basically the major Donkey Kong Jr. thing out there on the market, as it were.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a much harder game to hack in the first place, so it's not surprising.
Yeah,
on top of
definitely
the fact that Donkey Kong in general is just so much more popular. The first one gets all the attention.
Donkey Kong Jr. from a competitive community perspective doesn't have as much tech going on for point scoring as Donkey Kong does. So that's one thing. I think that's something they maybe tried to fix a little bit in Junior Remix while they were at it. Because I know the community seems to like it decently.
Nice. So that's cool. Like,
yeah. I was going to mention some footnotes and some of, at least one of the people that we talked about. The man who created D2K also modified Dragon's Lair.
Ooh.
Oh.
Which this, I guess.
Which version?
The 1980. It says it's a ROM set that had been created to enhance the gameplay of Cinematronic's 1983 version of Dragon's Lair.
Of the Laserdisc version.
Yes.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, because I heard that has like annoying difficulty issues.
Oh my god! And he also did one for Space Ace and Dragon's Lair 2.
Wow.
Nice.
So I guess he has.
Well, I imagine if they're running on similar architecture.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I was looking at a couple of articles where the guy who created D2K also went to Nintendo and is like, hey, would you guys like to release this thing officially? and Nintendo's response was they don't take outside submissions. That was their...
Yeah. Well, just from a legal standpoint, you can't, basically.
And if you did it once, then you would encourage a lot of other people to start.
To do it, yeah.
Like, different companies do have different approaches to that, but, like, yeah.
Yeah, Capcom did put out Street Fighter X Mega Man.
Well, no, Capcom didn't put that out. Capcom just gave it their seal of approval.
Capcom USA. They loaded it onto a special edition USB drive that they sold in their store or something.
Okay. We'll count that, I guess. And then Sega, while not like officially releasing any mods or whatnot, has, obviously hired people who have done Sonic mods and hacks and fan games and whatnot.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
on top of just having an open Steam Workshop mod scene for their Mega Drive collection, that's really cool.
I got a repro cart of the director's cut of Sonic 3D Blast the other day.
Nice.
I know, right?
Is that finished?
Yeah.
Okay.
I finished it a while back.
Okay, cool. Well, we've filled up almost an hour talking about this, so this was a good a good idea to fill out an episode. Of course, there's a lot more hacks of other games to make them into Donkey Kong games. I know Gibbon was telling me the other day about a hack for Nuts and Milk that turns it into a Donkey Kong sequel, and I found several others along the same lines while searching on Atari Age and other places. But in terms of just the hacks of Donkey Kong, I think we've covered it pretty well. But if you know of any more that you're particularly impressed by, please get in touch. Leave a comment or tweet at us or whatever. And we can maybe talk about it on a future episode. Yeah, one that I was more of a graphics hack. It was a one for Pink Floyd's The Wall. It's just graphics-wise. There's nothing else that changes. I just really like Pink Floyd's The Wall, and I was very I was really happy to see that someone had done exactly what I thought of, is taking the judge from the trial sequence and making him Donkey Kong, and that is exactly what I wanted and is what I got. Yeah, that's a really cool and well done hack.
Fair enough.
I I didn't mention it earlier because technically it is obscene. There are visible genitals.
Yeah, well, so is nuts and milk, but well, the nuts and milk
Yeah.
one. But
Yeah,
well, the nuts and milk one's weird because it's only for what?
Yeah,
It's
so
at the
the nuts and
end.
milk one's a little weird because there's a quote unquote demo of the hack up on the main ROM hacking repository that features some nudie art of
Nudie,
Pauline
nudie.
in
completely
instances
unnecessary.
completely unnecessarily. And then I have seen a repro cart of the quote unquote finished version of this hack, which doesn't even seem to have Pauline in it.
What?
And is more of a Mario and Luigi competing, and Stanley's there, and Donkey Kong is
Yeah.
there. And it's a lot more
Stanley is there.
unfocused. I don't know. I like the sort of pure Mario, Pauline, and Donkey Kong thing a bit more than what the repro seems to be going for, which is very fan wanky.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like the Mario, Pauline, and Donkey Kong thing, like Pauline's naked for parts of it for some reason, and so I might just go in and adjust that myself.
Oh, there you go.
That'll be my reintroduction to ROM hacking, is going and fixing
yeah, that'll be your first completed hack.
Yeah.
Yeah, confusingly, that one is also called Donkey Kong 2.
Yeah, I might also just change the name of that so there's not two Donkey Kong 2s roaming around.
Call it Donkey Kong 3. Oh, wait.
Oh, no.
And maybe call it The Revenge of Super Donkey Kong Part Movie.
Maybe this will be Kayateka Donkey Kong or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Return of
But I wanted to call my other one that. Oh, well. I think this is where we plug things.
Yes. Does anyone have any plugs since the last episode that they want to promote?
Any plugs? Ooh.
Do I have any plugs?
Well, I thought of one, so I can go
for
first.
it.
Yeah. So the other day, I was redoing an old pixel art of mine that had Echo the Dolphin and Ariel Little Mermaid, because her game is kind of an Echo clone, and a bunch of other characters. And I've played many, many more dolphin games and underwater games since then in that line. So I'm expanding it out to have like 30 characters on it. And doing research for it, I noticed this thing on Itch.io. It's also on Game Jolt, but it started as a game jam game for Jam for Leela, which was a 2015 jam in support of trans charities and trans activism.
Ooh,
and also in general supporting trans positive games and games about gender identity. So
that's nice.
That's right.
Yeah. It was a cool idea for a jam, and it resulted in a lot of. But the one that came out of it that I found really impressive was called SeaQuest 1992, which is confusing because the television show SeaQuest DSV had a video game that was released in 1992. So that's a little confusing. But the game itself is a mashup of a vaporwave aesthetic, low polygon graphics, a really banging soundtrack, Echo the Dolphin style gameplay, a bit more arcadey, but that kind of thing. And on top of it all, the story of it is an allegory for it's an allegory for gender transition, taken from the creator's own lived experience. So it's a fantastic little game. I did have some problems with the controls, but otherwise, I had a really good time with it. Yeah.
In the spirit of the episode, my plug is going to be Donkey Kong 5: The Journey Over Time and Space.
Yes, over time and space.
The Journey of Over Time and Space. And it's called Donkey Kong 5 because there was a Donkey Kong Country 4 hack, which is a NES backport of Donkey Kong Country.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, And this one's on the Game Boy Color, though.
And this one's on the Game Boy Color, and it's Donkey Kong 5, The Journey of Over Time and Space. And it uses, like, weird Game Boyified Donkey Kong and Diddy sprites, but also, like, gives him some moves from Taz, the Tasmanian Tiger?
Devil.
No, sorry, Tasmanian Devil in one of his Game Boy outings, and puts
I think it uses
some Mario Land aesthetics, or Mario Land 2 aesthetics, but yeah.
It rips off music from Pokemon Pinball as well, I think.
Yeah, it's just...
It's a collusion of...
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that there was some kind of logic to calling it Donkey Kong 5, but I think with bootleg games, there's not often a lot of logic. They would just tack a large number on the end of it to make you think it was the latest installment in a long-running series.
Yeah.
Like a 7 Granddad or something.
Yeah,
I love how DK and Diddy just have a random like anime girlfriend in this one.
Yeah, she's fun. I read a fan fiction once where Donkey Kong met up with her after a number of years and they reminisced about their bootleg game.
That's amazing. Okay.
Let's see. Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't really know what.
Yeah, good call.
I don't really know what to plug. I have a YouTube channel, I guess. I'm gonna be doing so much with it that isn't what I'm doing now. I'm gonna basically make a new channel because Kappa has taken everything I've done and privated half of it, so I just...
Ooh, nasty.
Yeah. It's because I was predominantly like a, entertainment for everybody channel, and then they decided entertainment for everybody is not an applicable thing. It has to be kids, or you have to say the F word. So...
Never mind the fact that YouTube Kids was a thing.
Yeah, and there's a perfect option for it to continue to exist, and there could have been an option where they say, hey, is your video designed for everybody? Yeah, whatever, it's dumb. The channel that I have, if you want to see what's left of all of the efforts I have spent the last, oh good god, 9 years of making videos. Technically, it's been 9 years this year that I started making content. The channel is Mr. Kyle's Films 1, that is no capitals, no spaces, and if you find something from it, it's going to be just a collusion of like Disney content that I made when I was younger. If you want to see me evolve as a human being and my interests, it is interesting to get back from the start when I was a tinier person and now that I'm a bigger person. It's great.
Yeah. So what's your next YouTube project going to be called?
I don't know. It's going to be a whole different channel.
Yeah.
Because the one I have now, even though it has 700 plus subscribers, it's been dead in the water for the past. I haven't been motivated to make stuff. I don't.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know what I'll call it yet, but it's going to be something where I talk about whatever I find interesting. And what I plan for one of my first things to be is a breakdown song by song of Pink Floyd's The Wall, because I feel like something different that people haven't added, and it's exclusively from a story perspective. It is not a behind the scenes look on how the album was created in the Insane Live show. It was more of a direct, this is the story of The Wall as we follow the main character, and it's going to be fun. I've already started writing, and I'm at like 2,500 words, and I haven't even broken down. Yeah, I haven't even finished breaking down the first song yet.
Right.
So it's fun.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
It's fun.
Cool. So in that case, where can people find you on the internet, Bob?
Where can people find me on the internet? You can find me on a dead Twitter handle, which is RareWareFan1985. That will be in the description if you want to go follow me on Twitter. I have Discord, so if you want to DM me on the dead Twitter and be like, hey, I want to contact you on Discord, great, I'll send you the name. And if I start getting a bunch of random people asking me for their credit card information, I will find you, track you down, and destroy you, because I don't...
Wait, asking you for their credit card information?
No, I've been asking for mine.
I was going to say.
I worded that.
What have you been up to?
No, nothing special, just, Well, yeah, contact me over dead Twitter. Comment on a YouTube video of mine if Kappa hasn't decided to disable comments and you being able to find it. So go ahead and contact me through the YouTube channel or my basically dead Twitter handle. Or if you already know me on Discord, shoot me a message and be like, hey, that podcast, really cool.
Yeah.
That's where you can find me.
Oh, I'll be sure to do that.
Good stuff. Okay.
All right. Thanks very much for joining us, Bob. This was
All
a
right,
really fun episode.
Yeah, and thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah.
And thank you for proposing what turned out to be a wonderful topic.
Yeah.
So until next time, I've been Milo.
And I am still currently Gibbon.
And
And
I
I
am-
might change
I'm
tomorrow. Watch out. And yes,
Ah.
Kyle is Bob.
Yes, that's me.
So thanks,
Oh.
listeners, very much for listening. And we'll see you next time on the Arcade Era Power Hour for more Donkey Kong and Friends content.